Hey guys, this is Chris from DSX Machina, and here it is, the Player's Handbook. I had to get it like everybody else got it, just in the mail. Just showed up, so at least according to Amazon, the launch date is today, or tomorrow, or today, but I got it today. I actually haven't opened this, I just got the box open. I'm going to go through it, but I'm going to go through it as a game designer and an experienced GM. I'm going to go through it very quickly, and I will probably delete any pregnant pauses. If you're looking to scan every page, you really need to get out more often. So, so we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to read through it here. From what I've already watched a few videos, but I haven't watched an actual detailed flip through. I wanted to do this intentionally because I wanted to read it and experience it for myself. So we have new streamline lose, easier character creation, enhanced classes, reimagined origins, expanded feats, upgraded weapon tools and crafting, dazzling spells. Okay, that's in the 2024 version. They want to call it 2024. Obviously, we're going to call it 5.5. From everything I've learned so far, this is not a 6th edition. They're not reinventing it from the ground up like 4 or 5 did. So we'll skip that section. They definitely wanted to emphasize also the artwork is really fantastic. I'm going to see if I can recognize. I'll be looking at the credits. I looked at the credits. I think I know 2 or 3 of the artists personally. Random tables, percentages. These are basically showing you how the rules work, and that's fine. We know how this works. We can see a critical success to a general success to a critical failure, and they're definitely explaining the game in a way that that's meant to attract new players. Ability score, highest score that can go. That's a bit. This is the highest an adventurer score can go unless a feature says otherwise. And then extraordinary, and this is the highest a score can go. Now there's something in Ultra Modern where in the ladders that you can take one of these to 22. That's a very special rule. That's, they're saying this is the highest an adventure score can go unless a feature says otherwise. A ladder can be a feature. We have the D20 cents. Nothing really changes. Circumstantials compared to target number. Influence, noticing things in the environment or a creature's behavior, reason or remember, push your body beyond normal limits, move nimbly, quickly, or quietly. And the DCs themselves haven't actually changed in scale. Attack rolls, strength, dexterity, vary spell attack. Once again, these can change all the time. Disadvantages, multiple situations roll, and they grant advantage on you still do 20, so these things do not stack. I have created situations where they can stack, specifically with the Oxymancer class. His deck building ability can have double or triple advantage. I'm not really against the idea of triple advantage. I mean, why not? But they don't want it for balance reasons, so let's go with that. Everyone's proficiency bonuses are basically the same. The bonus doesn't stack. Your proficiency bonus can't be added to a die roll or another number more than once. For example, roll allows you to make a charisma, so you can add your proficiency bonus if you're proficient in the skill. Might be multiplied or divided, doubled or halved, for example, before being added. For example, the expertise feature doubles a proficiency bonus for certain ability checks. Whenever the bonus is used, it can be multiplied only once and divided only once. So that's something I've played with this before. But it's interesting. You can't add it twice, but you can double it. That's, I mean, there's a part where there's just like that kind of means the same thing. Skill proficiencies, let's take a look here. Animal handling, arcana, athletics, deception, history, medicine, nature, perception, performance, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, stealth, survival. So they haven't added any new skills. Obviously, with Ultramodern, we try to keep it pretty low. We added engineering, added sciences, and that's basically it. Now, obviously, with tools, we added vehicle operation. And in the old build of Ultramodern 5, we did actually have vehicle operation as a skill, and then we switched it over to being a tool with the redo. But nothing major there. We added sciences, which I'm sure they're going to say is nature, but I wanted sciences to be something else. Computer use, that was something else, or electronic, but we use computer use is also another skill as well. And then engineering is basically your effective crafting skill. I'm surprised they still wanted you to have like proficiency with Tinker's tools in order to build things. I prefer an engineering skill more than it being a toolkit because obviously engineering is much more encompassing. We can look at the the actions. Equipment proficiency. The character gains proficiency with various weapons and tools. There are two categories of equipment proficiency: weapons and tools. Okay, nice and straightforward. Anyone can wield a weapon, but proficiency makes you better wielding it. Tools. If you have proficiency with that skill, okay. If you have proficiency with the tool, you can add your proficiency bonus to an ability check that you make that uses the tool. Hopefully, they will actually expand on this, because this is one of the more annoying features of 5e, is that they didn't really properly explain how tool proficiencies even worked. We have actions: disengage, dodge, help, hide, influence. Forgot I do have a player's handbook, and its cover is missing because I have it ring bound, because all the good game guys, all the good GMs ring bind their player's handbooks, because why wouldn't you not? Looking at the combat actions, and as stated, I knew the help action was still there. Search, use an object's been turned to utilize, and study has been added, has been influence. This doesn't really change anything. I mean, actions, I think there are actually, and technically there are a lot more actions than just listed there, just because, you know, it's a game. An action can be defined to be whatever you want it to be. This one is make a charisma deception. Make a charisma deception or summon check or wisdom melee check to alter a creature's attitude. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think that can go more into, like, we have influence checks, something like that, with certain classes. Study and search are basically similar. So yeah, we can see here that influence and study is used. Utilize has been used. Used to be use an object, it's now utilize, and we've added influence and study. Not really big changes. Is basically it allows them to incorporate the skill checks into the combat action area. That's fine. We have classes that do that anyway. It's interesting that they're putting all of this in the beginning. Bonus action, reaction. One thing, the game uses actions to govern how much you can do at a time. You can only take one action at a time. This principle is most important in combat, as explained in combat later in this chapter. Social interaction, you can try to influence a creature, use a search action to read the creature's body language, but you can't do both at the same time. But when you explore a dungeon, you can't simultaneously use the search action to look for traps and use the help action to aid another. I mean, that makes sense. We have bonus actions. You can only do one bonus action on your turn, and then reactions. That doesn't change. So someone was telling me about that they mucked with actions, but not really. That's about the same. Social interactions, ability check, social interaction. I'm going to skip that because that's all stuff we already know. We have exploration, where they've played around. We obviously are dealing with the 4 primary sights: blind sight, dark vision, tremor sense, and true sight. We all know that. They haven't done anything changing there. Bright light, dim light, and darkness. Heavily obscured, lightly obscured. Also, nothing changed there. They're not going into rules about that. What an object is: carrying, breaking, hazards. Pace doesn't really, I don't think they've ever changed that in 20 years. Okay, so combat, yeah, that's nice. They put all of this at the beginning of the book. This is very different. Okay. So, a typical combat encounter is a clash between 2 parties. Combat unfolds in these steps: establish position. The dungeon master determines where all the characters and monsters are. Everyone involved in combat encounter rolls initiative, determining the order of combat's turns. Each participant in battle takes a turn in initiative order. When everyone involved in the round has taken a turn, the round ends. Repeat the step until the fighting stops. So, there's a shock. Initiative turns in order during combat. When combat starts, every participant rolls initiative. They make a dexterity check that determines their place in initiative order. The DM rolls for monsters. For a group of identical creatures, the DM makes a single roll so that each member of the group has the same initiative. If a combat is surprised by combat starting, the combat has disadvantage on their initiative roll. Oh, see, this is slightly... Yeah, so things has been surprised. So surprise used to be, if you're surprised, you can't move or take an action in your first turn of combat, and you can't take a reaction until that turn ends. If so, combat is surprised by combat starting, that combatant has disadvantage on their initiative roll. For example, if an ambush starts combat while hidden from a foe was unaware that combat is starting, that foe is surprised. While a GM is maybe fine with that, players are going to hate that rule. One of the most contentious aspects of combat and surprise, when players ambush somebody, they want to have a clear advantage, and it seems like the DMG, or D&D specifically, is trying to strip the capacity of a surprise round. Players don't like being surprised, so you might think that most of the time this is a way of preventing players from getting their butt kicked in if they get ambushed. That being said, it's been my experience that GMs don't often surprise players because it feels cheap. And when players surprise, which they do more often than you might think, players want a decisive advantage. And to just give enemies a disadvantage to their initiative roll, which means they still could go before all the players, that will really piss players off. If they get the jump on an enemy and the enemy still gets a shot first. So that might not go over well. For sure, DM ranks the combatants from highest to lowest. This is the order in which they during. So ties, DM decides order, blah, blah, blah. This is surprising. I read somewhere that they were trying to do group initiatives. And there was, I don't know who it was because I don't follow a lot of social media. There was a big push to eliminate initiative as rank order, which means have the players go and then have all the monsters go. And then they can determine who goes first between them. So players can change their initiative or however they see fit. And when I read that, I was like, oh, so they're following that one dude. But it looks like here that they have not changed that at all. So that's one thing that they're not changing. So far, other than the 2 added actions, during the move, you can pass through the space of an ally, a creature that has incapacitated, a tiny creature or a creature that has 2 sizes or larger or smaller. Blah, blah, blah. You can't willingly end a movement space occupied by another creature. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Size. Of course, they, in their insane wisdom, end all their sizes were gargantuan. They stopped playing with creatures bigger than that. Now, for the people who remember, there in some editions that they have gone past it. Has been colossal, and in Ultramodern 4, especially in the Mecha chapter, I went past that because I wanted to play with stuff like Godzilla. So I've added 4 or 5 more size categories, which is also important, especially when you're dealing with spaceships. So there's Titanic, and then there's City, and then there's planetary and cosmic sizes. Just for shits and giggles. Range to combat, I'm going to bet you they're not changing much for here. Opportunity attacks, 5-foot reach, melee attacks, damage and healing. Let's see if they've mucked around. When you roll critical hit, you deal extra damage. Roll the attack's damage twice, add them together, add any relevant modifiers. If you score a critical hit, 2d4. Rather than 1d4, add your relevant modifier. Okay. Massive damage. When a creature reduces a character to 0 hit points and damage remains, the character dies if the remaining equals or exceeds their hit point maximum. For example, if the character has a hit point maximum of 12, currently has 6, takes 18 damage, they die. If your character dies, other blah blah, falling unconscious, reach 0 hit points and don't die instantly. You have the unconscious condition until you regain hit points. Death saving throws. So not much changes there. Death, I mean, they basically haven't changed that. And we have examples here. Creating a character. Okay, so let's get to the important part. So the important thing, we're 28 pages in, and other than them defining 2 additional actions, which were more about academic, just, people do it anyway, so why not make it an actual action? Nothing would change there. They have the complexity of the characters, their primary ability. Notice, of course, that character class comes before everything. And once again, they've rearranged how things are. So we don't have species selection. We don't have background selection. Pick your class first. Do I agree with that? No. And people say, "Oh, your class matters." Like, no, it's whatever you define it by. If you can make a game where species and background matter more than class. I mean, once again, one of the most famous adventures out there, of course, is In Search of Adventure, where you start as a 0-level character and you figure your class out as you play. So very much your background and your species selection do matter. I've always figured that you should grow your character organically. And what I mean by that is that your character is born, species selection. They grow through their youth, background selection. And then when they become an adult, they pick a role in life, their class. And I like writing my books in a way where you do it in that order. In fact, in my background options in Ultramodern, which is right here, you do exactly that, and even to the point of growing your character year by year until you reach the year where your character starts play. And around that point, you're also choosing your class. So this is very much a who gives a crap where you came from. It's all about how awesome you are as a character class at whatever level you want. So I'm not terribly a fan of that. I think personally, this is not going to affect how I create my books. I'm still going to put species first. I'd like to know what you guys think of that, just from a presentation standpoint. Do you prefer the classes to come first, or do you prefer backgrounds and species to come first? Okay. Now, having said all that, they say creating your character. So looks like, well, is this background, or is this no? This is still assigning ability scores, but they've done a lot of stuff. Right? Choose your well, wait a second. Create your character, choose a class, determine origin, determine ability scores, choose alignment, fill in the details. Right? So in their specific situation, they're saying you pick your class first. There's a big ass sheet that no one's going to use. You'll print a really good one online. Record your XP, note armor training, hold that thought. See, you'll fill in more details of your class later. Choosing your class is the most important decision you'll make in creating creative performance. Many decisions you'll make later. Okay. Choose a background. And we have a bunch of backgrounds here. Ability scores and backgrounds. Of course, we know now that ability scores, you benefits from your backgrounds. We'll talk about that in a second. One of the things I'll talk about with this video is whether or not I'm going to have to change anything in Ultramodern. So far, not a thing. Choose starting equipment. I can just put a little addendum and say, fully compatible with 2024 Player's Handbook, and then just not change a thing. Choose languages. Also, once again, your character knows at least 3 languages. Once again, I love how multilingual, even though the vast majority of people in North America know 1 language, most people aren't bilingual. If you're in Canada, you should be at least partially bilingual. In America, most Americans are not. I love whenever I encounter anyone in Europe, because they'll know 2 languages. And I knew somebody that knew 4 languages, and I'm so terribly impressed. So I'm always amazed at how multilingual player characters in D&D are. More multilingual than the majority of players that play the game. And they say your character knows 3 languages. Common plus 2 languages you'll roll or choose from the standard language table. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I like your languages being bound to your background and species selection. That's gonna, if you're being raised in Russia, or you're being raised in the UK, you're gonna have a different, selection of languages to choose from. I don't like the idea of no matter where you are, no matter where you're from, you're just picking your languages, hibbledy-gibbly. And then we have rare languages, standard languages. Once again, languages are setting specific, so we don't have to worry about that. We have the ability score. Once again, are they giving out random generation, point cost, standard array? Nothing changes there. Ability bonuses, nothing changes there. Describe appearance and personality. So this is basically trying to give you an idea how your character physically looks. If you're high charisma, you can roll or choose. They can give you a roll, but obviously you don't have to roll. You can always choose. Weak, slight, self-conscious, indirect, muscular, sinewy, protective, direct. And so that's an interesting choice. Once again, some people may say they don't need to be told how to create their characters, but some people do. Their alignments, nothing changes there. And I also appreciate that that's probably the only time we're ever going to mention alignment in this whole book. And they give traits. Okay, so they've taken most of those random personality traits from backgrounds and they've thrown it in here. It's very generic. I mean, it's one little table that tells you these things. Looks like hit points are basically the same. Skills, character advancement XP. I don't believe that's been changed at all either. 7 hit points. Choose a class. Adjust hit points for each die you gain a level, gain additional hit die, roll that die, add constant modifier. Instead, rolling 6 points, nothing changes there. Starting equipment. Oh, interesting. They have, this is something that generally has always been hard to find. They have a tendency of dumping this into DMG. Starting equipment at higher levels. Thank you for putting it early in the player's handbook instead of hiding it in the DMG like these do so often. And the tiers, yeah, that basically, I understand that. And multi-classing, which has always been something that's been very basic, and here they're actually giving it a lot of detail. Proficiency, experience, hit point die. So that's pretty standard. And once again, trinkets, once again, which is part of backgrounds, and now trinkets are a big die 100 thing. It seems to be weird to force a trinket on people. I mean, sure, it's neat, but does everyone need a gimmick? Does everyone need a character quirk? I mean, it feels weird, but anyway. So now we have classes. This is what everyone's looking for. Become a barbarian. Oh, they also tell you how you get multi-class and so forth. I don't really need to go into huge details in Ultra Modern with multi-classing. We threw in the basic stuff. I didn't want to feel like I have to add all these extra rules for multi-classing. Die 12, saving throw. So they're presenting the table slightly differently as well. Do they still have the... Yeah, so the barbarian table, they changed this table. I would have been really miffed. I'm making the book kind of the center point, so you can't really see the old player's handbook, but we could do that a little bit. So, once again, I mean, wow, just big illustration. Just every class is a big full-page illustration. I mean, obviously, I find it interesting. We're 47, 52 pages, even though they spent so much time, because they completely skipped out species and races and so forth. This book is only a few pages over. So obviously proficiency bonuses haven't changed. Rages haven't changed. Rage damage hasn't changed. We've added in weapon mastery, which I know is something that they muck around with later. Your training with weapons allows you to use your mastery properties of two kinds of simple and martial new weapons for choice, such as a great axe or hand axes. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can practice weapon drills and change one of these weapon choices. When you reach a certain barbarian levels, you gain the ability to use mastery properties of more kinds of weapons as shown in the weapon mastery table. Okay, so these are, you can get 2 up to 4, and obviously this will be with weapons later. Beyond that, let's see here. Rage armor defense, dangerous reckless attack, primal path. So they call it, obviously at this point, barbarian subclass. They're going to call it subclass for everything, which is something, I will bet you money that these subclasses are exactly the same for every class. So this one's 3, 6, 10, 14. I do appreciate them putting level numbers here, which they didn't do before. Most of the time, they would just say that, and they'd say at this level, blah, blah, blah. That's really smart. Thank you for doing that. That's something that I'm going to implement now, probably in mind, just to make things easy. Because once again, for all this time, from 3rd edition all the way until now, they never did that. They just put the name of the ability, say starting at 11th level. But here, the 11th level, Relentless Rage, which is at the same level too. Barbarian subclass. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the Barbarian subclasses are basically the same. So it's at 3, it's at 6, it's at 10, and 14. So that's basically the same. It's at the same place. I was making a prediction that the subclasses were at the same levels for everybody, because in the 5th edition, it's not. Obviously, they've added a bunch, because before they had Path of the Berserker, Path of the Totem Warrior, and that was it. Now we have Path of the Berserker, Path of the Wild Heart, Path of the World Tree, Path of the Zealot. So they gave you a lot more options here. Bard. Oh, I'm a bard. Okay. And they're also doing it very specifically. They're adding in art so that the classes always start on one side. Here, of course, in the old book, they would start on a new page, but they didn't care if it was a left or a right. So Bard. So here we can see Bardic Die, and Bardic Die was listed here and it's down here. So it looks like they've added something, but they haven't. So not much has changed there. Font of Inspiration. Let's see here, level 5. Yep, Counter Charm, Magical Secrets. Have the spells been changed at all? 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. Nope, nothing changed there. Oh, there's an interesting thing. They put the spell list. Also, something incredibly smart, which they should have done a very, very long time ago, putting the Bard spell list right with the Bard. Why in the world they shoved it all the way back in the spell list, I wouldn't know. But that's smart. That's very, very smart. I'm not going to bother checking if they get the same spells. I heard there's a lot more spells in the book, so we're not going to worry about that. Subclasses, the colleges. Oh, yes, before we have 4. Huh. Oh, they actually have little indicators there. So, there we go. Colleges and is it? Yeah, so it's the same. Wait. So these are the same 3, 3, 6, 14. And with this one is 3, 3, 6, 10, 14. Missing something? Yeah, so this one is less. So you get 3, 3, 6, 14. Barbarian is 3, 3, 6, 10, 14. Yeah. And funny thing is that there was talk that they were going to make subclasses semi-universal, so they'd all be all the same levels for everybody. Which, by the way, which we did in Ultramodern. And I'm just surprised that they didn't try with that. And people are going to say, well, there's no way, there's no such thing as universal subclasses. I beg to differ, but that's just my opinion. I may be wrong. So far, I'm not seeing... yeah, we get these epic boons. People goes, oh, what about epic boons? I go, yes, I've noticed epic boons. Greater divine intervention. Is the ability score improvement have changed? So the ability score improvement here, it's still going to be 4, still going to be 8, still going to be 12. So they haven't changed that, except where you should be getting the 19, you're getting an epic boon instead. So that's one thing they've changed for all of those. They've added the epic boon. Now, of course, epic boon being a epic boon feat will probably do the exact same thing. It's just you get a more powerful ability, which could still be an ability score improvement. They've just added an option for level 19, which is easy. In Ultramodern 5, we do the exact same thing. When we look at the classes, 19 ability score improvement, you can easily change that into an epic boon, and nothing changes. So far, that's the only thing that we would play around with the classes, saying at level 19, I can put out a file, and it simply does one thing and say, oh yeah, by the way, every character level at level 19 gets an epic boon feat instead of ability score improvements. Problem solved. We have Druid. Now, there's a part of me that wants to... Because I'm not... Once again, we have the Druid spells, but so far, they're not... I'm really surprised at how little has changed. I mean, they've added some more things, but I'm actually really interested until we get to the Fighter. Let's see Fighter. Once again, they've expanded... They've done the full half page for basically every single class, which is nice. They've also kind of renamed things. Like Second Wind is here. Let's go check and see. Second Wind, 2, 3, 4. So this is interesting. So let's take a look. We see Second Wind. You regain 1 expended use when you finish your short rest, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. When you reach certain fire levels, you gain more uses of this feature as shown in the Second Wind combat table. So they have tweaked that. You have a limited well of stamina you can draw, blah, blah. On your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1 die 10 plus your fighter level. Once you use this feature, you must finish your short or long rest before you use it again. That is the first time I saw a major increase in something. I know there could have been something in Druid, and there's probably something in Barbarian, but that seems like a big one. To make them way tankier is giving them the option to get them 4 second wins instead of 2. That's a significant improvement. They get the weapon mastery, which is the same as what we talked about with the fighter. Does action surge change? It says you may not do the additional magic action. Once you use this feature, you cannot do so again until you finish a short rest long enough. Starting at 7th level, you can use it twice. So that doesn't change. Okay, so they haven't changed that. We've added tactical mind. When you fail an ability check, you can expend. Oh, they are. When you fail an ability check, you can expend the use of second wind to push yourself towards success. Rather than regaining hit points, you roll 1d10 and add the number rolled to the ability check, eventually turning into a success. If the check still fails, this use of second wind isn't expended. This is how I would write an ability. I'm not saying that this is verbatim of something I wrote, but this is the style in which I write abilities. I give you a way of using a resource that's generally considered to be something else and expending it for something else. And then if you screw up, because when I saw the 1d10, red flags were going up, going, if you roll a 1, you've blown a second win for that. But if you don't turn into a success, you don't lose the use of that ability. Very useful. I like the fact they did that. This is something that I was championing all the way back in 4th edition. I really like the fact they did that. Obviously, I was doing this stuff with hit dice, blowing hit dice to get certain things, which I noticed. Maybe I'm blind. I haven't noticed a lot of those yet. But this one's using second wins because you get additional second wins. Obviously, this is class specific, so this is nothing that's going to affect anything in Ultramodern. But I do really like that style of writing. That's definitely something that I would write. Their subclasses are 3, 7, 10, 15, and 18. So very different, a lot more options. So now you get a ton. You get 3, 7, and now people want to say that's exactly how it's supposed to be. So yeah, so if you look here, beginning with archetype, martial archetypes champion, one at 3, 1 at 7, 1 at 10, 15, and 18. Here it's 3, 3, 7, 10, 15, 18. So they've put a lot more into subclasses there. Yeah, so they've definitely tweaked and tried to increase the ability. I really like it. This is probably one of the best designs for a fighter in a while. Someone's going to say they borrowed this element from these books. As you know, I make a conscious effort to not read their the Splat books are offshoot. I basically derive everything off of the 3 primary books. I know they ripped me off on a couple occasions. People have said they ripped me off. I will write it up to more often that I think we're just coming at the same ideas. I personally don't think they're truly grabbing my books and stealing ideas. I think there's some smart people that they have that are simply deriving from the same source. But I definitely like the shots in the arm from fans that think that Wizards is stealing stuff from me, but I don't think they are. So that's fascinating that they've done that with Fighter. So they've definitely tweaked Fighter. Monk, great illustration. Holy crap, that is nice. That is cool. I enjoy the fact that they're tweaking the species, swapping them out. That's really cool. I have to admit, I'm a sucker for Nick Greenwood's martial art Monk. It was actually the illustration that got him and me to work together, so I'm a soft spot for that one. But let's see how much. I've been told that they've tweaked. Yeah, they have tweaked it. You can see the damage starts at 1 die 6 and then goes all the way up to 1 die 12. So this is one of the first times where I've seen, like, obviously we saw tweak with Fighter, but this is one where it just jumps out. Key points doesn't change. Unarmored movement doesn't change. Martial arts damage does. And I'm sure there's going to be more in here as well. Let's see here. We got the martial arts styles, flurry of blows, patient defense. I find it interesting, like it's fascinating how they stage their writing. If you look at here, in the 5th edition, they actually go into this, which is a pattern I follow with my classes. Here, they give a much smaller intro, talk about becoming one, and then it's right into the classes. So that's why you know, I'm used to flipping a page to get to the class features, and I'm gonna have to remind myself that it's actually on the same page here. It's on the same page, but we have all this extra stuff before we get the class features. Here, it's just right there. So to look at these abilities, it's actually on different pages in relation to the beginning of the chapter. It's a damn good thing that they've done martial art damage dice to increase. It was always a bit of an issue. Totally not relating to the fact that my martial artist damage starts at 1d6. I just want to point that out, that the unarmed damage starts at 1d6. So they've matched it with mine. I don't have to increase mine at all because mine's already at 1d6. So another thing I don't have to tweak. Yeah, I've always been iffy on the monk. I like the idea of a more generic martial arts where it allows you to tweak and you can get into the wushu monk style. But obviously, that's what they want to play with. They've removed some of the stuff here. I mean, I think they have perfect focus. So one of the things that they've done with, and this is something that I've played with here, when you roll initiative, you regain all expended focus points. And that's a big point. Because I think one of the things they didn't really with 5th edition is people will sometimes have several bouts of combat before short rests. Where in some cases it was thought that you get a short rest at the end of every combat, and it wasn't always the case. And so one of the things that I saw people play with, which I've also played with, is certain abilities that reset at initiative. And I'm going to check over, and I may play with that as well. I think one example would be the gunslinger. Yeah, I can see tweaking the kata points in in Gunslinger to also reset with initiative. I have a few things that reset with initiative, and that's something I may play with purely. But once again, I don't think any of it is unbalancing the game. I don't think, for example, nothing other than maybe adding in that boon just for people to be interested. I don't believe that this is anything I need to worry about when it comes to like the fact that I don't think that this uncanny metabolism resetting your Kai points. This is a way so you're constantly available. That being said, I do like the idea of giving players and resetting abilities through initiative rather than resetting it through short and long rests. I was playing with that as well in certain features, but I absolutely love the fact that they're playing with that. I can't remember which abilities I use that reset with initiative, but that's definitely a good way of doing it. So I like that a lot. There's probably a lot of other neat ideas here I can play with as well. Paladin. I don't think I'm going to go through all these classes because from what I understood, there's a lot of them. I know that they played around with Smite a little bit. Spells, once again, are the same. Of course, with these classes, I got to flip the page over. Divine Smite, damage 2d10. Oh, it's definitely heavily rewritten. Paladin Smite and Divine Smite are way different. Channel Divinity. Their subclasses come with 3rd, 7, 15, and 20. 2 here. 3rd, 7, 15, 20. So they didn't change that. Okay. Ranger, which they're unfortunately not going to change. I really wish they would. They have heavily changed their spell listing, though. They have made them spellcasters at 1st level. That's a big one. Favorite enemy is here now. It says a tail prepared spells. Yeah, so they have shifted the whole class forward, given them basically the same spells cast at 20th level, but more prepared spells. And obviously, you can now cast it at 1st level, which you couldn't before. That's a big change. Once again, I kind of long for the days of the 40 martial ranger, but whatever. I can't always win at those conversations because they don't want to change much, and that would be a huge change. That's what I was going to say. That's the warden, like whatever. Oh, look at that! They're putting the Beastmaster. They're giving you the monsters, which is going to give me a little bit of an insight in how they're presenting monsters. Because you imagine that this is how the monsters are going to look like in the monster manual. Medium beast neutral, AC plus wisdom, 5 planet speed. But this is how they're changing. They're putting the mod and the saving throw there. That's a very interesting turn. That's pretty cool. It is a bit easier. So instead of having the saves down here, if the saves are different, they'll be up there. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's not a huge deal breaker, but it's absolutely interesting. Everything else is the same. They have traits. They have their actions. The actions are presented the same way as well. The traits is they've added the word traits. Usually it just goes from there to this and then it shows there, but that doesn't change anything. Obviously, if I wanted a monster if I was designing a monster manual today, I would probably follow that formula just to make people hate me and conform to their design aesthetics. We have Rogue. I'm gonna guess that because Rogue has never been. Yeah, there's a shock. They didn't change that at all. I'm gonna put cash down that they didn't change a thing on this class. Cunning action, roguish archetype at 3rd level. Let's see if it's the same. 3rd, 9, 13, 17. 3rd, 9, 13, 17. Yeah, I don't think they did. They might have changed a couple things. Obviously, changing the wording and all that. But this class has always been so. Yeah, no, I think this is. I made a prediction that Rogue was not going to get changed, and I don't really think they did. Obviously, got their Rogue classes before going. Are we going into Sorcerer, or are they going into another path? Sorcerer. For purely personal reasons, I'm probably going to skip the spellcasting classes, just because there's going to be so much little tweaking. Once again, comparative spells known massively a lot higher. And of course, they have the spell list, which is very smart. They're going to do the Warlock after this, aren't they? Yep. So they have all their spellcasting classes. This is going to seem very strange to say, but I have never, ever never even played with a Warlock, ever. In all my history with 5th edition, I have never been in a game group that had a Warlock. I have never played as a Warlock. And as a GM, I never created or had a Warlock. Warlocks never show up in my games. Nothing against them. I generally, when I create my settings, I only give you 1 or 2 paths of spellcraft. Obviously, Amethyst, each of the affinities all have 1 canonical spellcast. Wizardry, once again, they played around with the listing this year, but looks like the actual number of spells hasn't changed. Epic Boon, once again. I'm actually be more interested in getting past this section. Now, obviously, personality, heights, and I don't think we're going to be messing with this. Character background. Here are the backgrounds. Holy, they seriously do it this way? Is there an illustration for... Oh my god, there's an illustration for every one of these. And this is... I'm sorry, I don't agree. This should be before character classes. I know they're making this decision, but... And it's also a +1. So you got a 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Feat, Magic, Initiate, Cleric, Feat, Crafter, Alert. So you get a feat, and you get skill proficiencies. Oh, wait. Did I just completely blank? So yeah, they still have the same number of skills, and the what proficiencies aren't going to change. Because for me, proficiencies don't balance or imbalance a character. So we have some equipment, we got some equipment, some meta, some skill proficiencies. Not much changes here. Interesting that they're adding in a new feat. So you get a feat based off of your origin. These illustrations are amazing, but drastically different styles. Very kind of rustic, kind of almost concept-y. Very digital with this one. Really pushing the kind of magic tech that D&D has been pushing towards, moving away from fantasy and moving closer and closer to the kind of hardcore. Oh no, we were actually I've jumped past it. We're in species now. So, in case you're wondering, the way I did it in Ultramodern and Amethyst, I did it quite a bit differently. Basically, I have heritage features and genetic, and basically, you get to choose where you get your ability scores from, either from background or from species. So you get to choose. We did that with Amethyst, with the reboot. We do it for Ultramodern. I do it for all my books. And this is going to seem strange, despite the fact that they're pushing in this direction. I'm going to keep on doing that. Because saying, oh, look, hey, get your ability scores from your background, get your ability scores from your species selection. You can choose which way you want to go. Give people options. Isn't that what this thing was about? Species descriptions. And this one gives you your size, your speed. Once again, I'm going to have to say it. It's a little hypocritical, the fact that people were talking about how ability score bonuses should not be bound to your species selection, because that kind of pushes you into a specific class description, a class orientation. But then they still say that they're all going to be the same speed. And that's one thing I was tweaking last year when I was playing around altering 5.5 rules. The fact that you could, in fact, have characters that were significantly faster or slower based off of their dexterity, their strength bonuses, and so forth. And the fact that they're still forcing the same speed for all the characters. I know there's something going to do that for game balance, but it's kind of obvious, the fact that, no matter what they have, you're all going to be around the same size, you're all going to be the same speed, and at that point, it's just a handful of special traits. Maybe you'll get dark vision, maybe you won't. Because they're trying to steer away from what they deem to be kind of racist character archetypes. And of course, my thing is that if the moment you put in dwarven toughness and stone cutting, you're shoehorning dwarves into a specific racist stereotype. So there's just no way around that. There's just no way around it. I don't think there's a solution, really. I mean, you have gnome. You can be a forest gnome or you can be a rock gnome. You cannot be either, because whatever. Very interesting. They're very cultural images. Obviously, we had elf there, being very elf-like. And then we skip over, we show the gnomes all being tinkerers. Halflings are all getting together for a meal. Goliaths are all picking and carrying things. And yet it's still racist stereotyping. It just is. I mean, it's tieflings, and then we have feet. So I suppose this chapter is gigantic. It used to be very much an afterthought. It was like 3 pages in this one. So we have feat list, origin, general, fighting, style, epic, boon. So these are the origin feats. These are the ones that came with your background feature. So these are origin feats. I thought you got to choose them, but you actually can't. You get them, which is kind of, maybe it's me doing a little bit of a nitpicky, but it's if you have a fixed feat, maybe someone's going to say you're missing a section here. I guess, you could pick an origin feat later, and this is their way of giving people the option to pick an origin feat later. But it just feels weird that they would put these feats here when you only get them with your origin. But I guess doing it this way allows players to select an origin feat later, I guess. These feats are in the origin category. So there's nothing that really specifically tells you where you can get a feat. Except, origin feats don't give you ability score bonuses. So it would be really kind of foolish for you to pick those later in classes, because it's not nearly as powerful. So I know they're listing you the origin feats in case you want to pick it later down the line, But why would you ever do that since you don't get an ability score bonus with them? It makes you think, why would they put these origin feats here and not just merge them with backgrounds? Since it would be really odd for a player to pick an origin feat later in their class progression when it's clear that you would pick a general feat which have ability score bonuses with every single one. Which is good. I can see doing that as well. Yeah. That's another thing I can tweak. I can say basically every single feat gives you +1. This one, of course, gives you specifically to bonuses to specific areas, and that's fine. That's a very specific thing. Okay, so this is the big thing about epic. So epic boon feats allow you to increase your total to 30. Wait a second. So general feats to a maximum of 20. Epic boon feats increase one ability score of your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. That's cool. I know if you're not thinking, why am I pausing at this point, it should be pretty obvious. You get your epic, everyone gets the epic boon feat at the exact same time, 19 plus. So they're obviously talking about or implying that there's going to be a Immortals or an extended edition, which gives you levels 21 to 30. 4th edition went to 30. 3.5 did it with an expansion. It's always been a part of D&D, but it's never really been part of 5th edition. There's never been a full-on book that gave you the epic levels, as they call them. There was legendary, heroic, epic, right? And epic levels were levels 21 to 30. It was in 4th edition. Someone's going to say which book on 5th edition it comes with. I have never read it because I'm not interested in that. Because as they determined and figured out, almost nobody ever gets all the way to 20 in the first place in the character progression, let alone getting into the 20s. If they don't plan on ever presenting levels 21 to 30 with these new 2024, why in the world are they giving you a maximum of 30 at level 19? Because there's only one level past it. At the very least, you are going to have probably a 20, maybe a 22 if you're lucky, with one ability score bonus of your choice. In Ultramodern, you get to go to 22 with one of your 6. So now you get one ability to score your choice by 1 to a maximum of 30. You're never going to get close to 30. Why? So why in the world would they put the maximum that high unless there was something down the line that could increase your ability scores past 20? I find that very interesting that they would do that. You gain proficiency in all skills. So these are very, very, very powerful feats. Once again, I can easily see doing it. That still being said, you could easily have a 19 ability score bonus by saying increase one of ability scores your choice to a maximum of 22 or 24. Or you can pick up epic boon. Boon of skill, boon of fortitude. Wow, big ones too. Your ability maximum increases to 40. In addition, when you regain hit points, you regain additional point equal to your constitution modifier. Yeah, so these are very, very powerful abilities. They've definitely made that. So once again, I can easily include that as an errata. So my guess here going into weapons is that none of the costs or the damage values have changed. No, they're all basically the same. Now, what they've done and changed, weights are the same, is that they've added these. If you hit a creature with a melee attack using this weapon, you can make a melee attack with this weapon against a second creature within 5 feet. So these used to be fighter abilities, and now they are binding them to the weapons, which makes sense. It doesn't make sense why you'd have cleave with a club, right? It would be something you'd have with an axe. So that's neat. So they're very basically minor things. When you make an extra attack with the light property, you can make it part of attack action instead of a bonus action. You can take this extra action on your turn. Neat. Oh, look at that. Even illustrations for all of them. And armor, of course. Is armor played with? No, armor is not played with at all. That would be really, really, really. I mean, adding in some more stuff for combat is one thing, but mucking around with. I like the fact that they put weapons first instead of armor. It's always been traditional that they put armor first, or whatever. But no, they did not change that. Didn't even change the costs. Tool proficiencies. Finally, they've expanded this. About friggin' time. Good lord. It tells you what you can craft. It tells you how you utilize it. It tells you the ability you use. That is very useful. I can see tweaking and adding and defining that in my game as well. But I'm very, very happy that they finally decided to expand that. That was a really stupid thing that they missed out. Mounts and vehicles. Okay, nothing much on there. And then spells. And I'm sure they've done a lot with spells, considering how big this section is. Oh my god. And yeah, so now get some monsters. And so yeah, following what I thought before, they've added the word traits. They have gone in and I think that, once again, do you think that they've added an initiative up here in order to shrink this? They wanted to decrease this overall size. These are basic monsters. Obviously, when we see dragons, they'll be a lot larger. This is definitely a neat idea. I think if I do a monster manual, I'm going to follow that pattern. I think it's a good idea. Let's see here. These are all basic small monsters. Let's see if there's anything bigger here. So we have some resistances. Anything really big? I think they put it. Oh yeah, of course the glossary, of course. A glossary. But they've always played with small glossaries, but never to the point of actually having a full on. So that's really good. Okay. So with the exception of they've tweaked a couple classes. This is definitely a 5.5. But to think that this is somehow incompatible with this or this specifically. It's not. These are still fully compatible with each other. I think the only thing that would tweak, I would probably look into very specific things that are combat related, which reset at the end of a short rest and do it for initiative. Adding in the epic boon ability for every 19th level one. That's pretty easy. And that's really about it. I don't think there's anything I need to really concern myself to. Obviously, our firearm rules are completely bespoke, so they're different than what they've played. Unless they, I was almost worried that they were going to throw in firearm rules in this book, just because there are basic firearm rules in the DMG. They do have a musket, but they haven't tweaked how that works. It's still the way the same, although it has a slow and a vex, which is you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature. You have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. That's neat. I have weapon traits for my weapons as well, but whatever. Yeah, this is interesting. Oh, they made them expensive. Interesting. Of course, it's a musket. But there you go. Yeah, like I said, I can see adding in and coming out with a little patch that says, here's your Player's Handbook 2024 update to Ultramodern 5, and just have a few tweaks for those people who want to think about balancing. I'm not going to worry about the first level feats for Origin. For those people who are curious, the ladder does that as well. So ladder gets you a 3rd level ability. So I no longer think, some people believe that the Ultramodern classes are slightly more powerful than the PHP classes. I don't think that plays anymore. I think the Ultramodern classes are perfectly balanced now to Player's Handbook, equally more so now. And I also think that if you run ladders and Ultramodern 5 characters, you can integrate them with these without these characters having to use ladders. But more so, and this is where things are going to get a little tweaky here. If you get a ladder, your first level ladder ability would replace your background feat. That's one thing I would throw in just to make it a bit easier. If you want to use ladders for the Player's Handbook, you don't get your origin feat. That's it. That's all I would say. Anyway, guys, that is Chris. I'm going to plug you some more information later down the road. I'm going to edit this, see if I can get it down to under an hour. And thanks a lot, guys. And this has been Chris from Deus Ex Machina.